Group B.
And not only is it 12 series apiece, 31 game wins for Group A and 30 game wins for Group B. So let's see whether or not this ends up being even. If Splyce win this and do the reverse sweep, it'd be fantastic. And Tristana, to nobody's surprise, is banned in Phase 1.
But the Maokai is also banned away. That means Elise, Cho'Gath is now available for first pick, but it means Misfits would have to forego that Kalista. And we know Kobbe plays it. We know that Splyce have played around that Kalista before, so while it might be a risk giving that show over, you've still got the Sejuani, the Braum, if they wanted to take it for Splyce, but it's not the Kalista, it's not the Sejuani, it's not the Braum, it's the Kog'Maw coming out here alongside Orianna. Very different priority here, but Kog'Maw can live up to Kalista a little in the laning phase, then scale incredibly well, especially versus tanks as an AD carry, but that's a risk.
Well, look
already.
at it this way, Stress. If the first 2 games tempo are anything to go by, Splyce will get to at least 23 minutes before the game is instantly over. And that might be enough time for Kobbe to get himself a few items. Hans Summer's going to lock in the Kalista once again. Definitely his flavor of the patch for now. And no priority on that Braum yet. However, that's what Splyce have run multiple times in the past.
Now, if they don't go mid lane for PowerOfEvil, the Braum could come out here, but I think we know the mid lane pool will get pinched if they leave it till after Phase 1. That's why the Taliyah comes out. PowerOfEvil, of course, has a whole range of champions in his champion pool, but this is only his second game, this split of Taliyah being played.
He went 3-1-8 in a victory the last time he played that champion. We've talked a lot about that Braum. It has continued to be a high priority on the side of Splyce, and it is locked in here in Phase 1.
And now the Taliyah can actually do quite well against these static carries in fights like a Kog'Maw who just wants to stand still, because you basically just seismic shove him into your own team, and if Kobbe isn't paying attention, he's going to end up getting killed very quickly. And as we move to ban Phase 2, it's become more about these picks we've seen a lot in this series. The Jarvan has worked well for Alphari. That is not available here in Game 3.
What happens next? What else gets banned? Because Thresh and Rakan have been 2 staples. IgNar's Rakan was hugely impactful. It kept finding targets, priority targets, over and over. And Splyce will say Rakan is more likely the champion you're allowed to play, as they've banned away the Thresh. I guess Kalista Thresh, nobody really wants to give that combo over.
No, you don't want to give that over at all. Now, if this isn't a Sejuani ban coming through here from Misfits, then it'll likely be picked up by Splyce. If it is a Sejuani ban, they'll probably go to Gragas.
We'll finally get the Gragas.
Yeah, that everybody talks about.
So much about. I feel like the interviews for that video may have been done pre-714.
Yeah.
I have no proof to back that up, but it feels like the case. And in actual fact, they're banning Gragas instead of Sejuani.
Yeah, so they fear the Gragas a little bit more. Remember Maxlore saying the Trashy's a one trick. They know that's where he'll go if it's available. Whereas the Sejuani has been a struggling point to be active on the map. And when you look at it, scaling already from the AD carry, scaling on the mid lane, it means Splyce need a top laner that is active earlier in the game, otherwise they might fall into the same trap.
Well, let's see what Wunder decides to play. Has the option to counter pick now. Gnar is locked in for Alphari because his Jarvan has been banned away. Played Jarvan 4 times this week already.
So we could play the Rumble if we want to see him go for that AP damage, a little bit of teamfight presence earlier in the game was what we're talking about. Irelia would be a lane matchup that we have seen picked commonly into the Gnar, and we've been talking about this for 2 draft phases, Trevor. It is now the Alistar coming out with that Kalista.
Do you prefer this Misfits gaming comp when we look at the mid game? It feels like Kalista, Gnar, Taliyah, Alistar just switch online earlier than maybe the entirety of Splyce thus far.
And a little earlier, I'm a little worried still without a primary engaged tool like an Ash Arrow. Maybe if you can get the Weaver's Wall to come through to get that Cho'Gath into the fight. That's the only concern for me. Maybe Hans Summer throwing IgNar in if you can get that distance closed. But for Splyce, it's another champion that will take a little time to come online in this game. It's a bit of a risky setup here out of Splyce. Looking for a little later in the game.
I mean, scaling again, split push in the side of the Camille. Admittedly, though, it is into that split pusher of Alphari's Gnar. but the value of a Gnar in team fights, in my opinion, greater than that of a Camille. They do slightly different things, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's the risk reward, right? A Gnar, if you get a 5-man Gnar ultimate off, basically wins a team fight. Whereas that ultimatum is always going to have the same impact. You can always lock down that one person. So the difference is quite distinct, but I think Misfits once again have decent team fighting. It's not quite as linear as before, whereas Splyce have good team fighting themselves. With that split push component you're talking about, the Camille on the side lane may open up enough room and buy time for Kobbe's Kog'Maw and Sencux Orianna to actually get into this game.
Well, the 2 previous games, Splyce have actually had a very good early game. They've got some early advantages. I don't want to take everything away from Kobbe and Mikyx losing first blood at level 2 because they instantly came back and destroyed Hansama and IgNar with that Tristana-Braum combination. Let's see what they can do this time around. It is a Kog'Maw Braum. A lot of additional damage to back it up, and it is the last game of Group A versus Group B here in the European LCS. Stress mentioned it a moment ago. 12 series wins apiece, 31 games for Group A, 30 games for Group B. That's parity if ever I've seen it.
Wait, but what happens if Group B win all the series by Splyce winning? That means they'd even up the game wins. Then they'd be even. You can't be even and win.
Well, apparently you can.
That's why we got rid of best of 2, right?
That's what we got. That's it. That's exactly how it works. No more ties here in EU. Only the one that you're wearing right now.
I was going to say, it would take quite a tie to match with that dashing shirt.
Oh, we cut away.
Was it time?
For the compliments. It is always time. Oh, IgNar's practicing his cowbell mechanics. I'm trying to look at his facial expression on stage to see if it is as trolly as the champion he's running.
Now, Kobbe, on the other hand, went not for the troll route, didn't play Pugmore, still trying to make it Christmas time in July.
I have noticed that all of the Splyce skins were Christmas possible. They actually did that. The Braum previously as well. It was the Night Elf, the Earnest Elf Tristana as well. There's a little bit of synergy in there. So I don't know if they're just, you know, thinking about Christmas already.
Well, they gifted over a couple of fights to Misfits in Game 1 and 2, so...
They gifted a Nexus in Game 1. And unlike Game 1, we have an Infernal Drake right out the gates. Yeah. So that'll be a little bit more contest-worthy. The Cloud Drakes just meant we didn't have those exchanges, and Misfits going for some early trades here and trying to disrupt
Speaking of contesting, it's trying to contest these Raptors actually forces the reset. This will mean Trashy, it'll take a little longer for him to actually take that camp, and now PowerOfEvil makes it back into the lane. Now we have to look at the effect that has on the top lane and mid lane, because Trashy is going to be slower off the mark. You can see Cho'Gath is already done with the red buff onto his Raptor camp. And we have to track whether Maxlore can get into a lane quicker than Trashy.
All right, and what sort of impact that'll have? Of course, Trashy. I have been impressed with Trashy's early game. Not a jungler that I've traditionally associated with early game laning phase impact. Always thought he was stronger in the mid to late game, especially around team fights. You can see what he can do against Cho'Gath. This Cho'Gath as well, first time it's been played this series. It's been banned out in both previous games, both times by the red side actually. And that might, I don't know, might help or hurt Splyce as they let it go through.
Yeah, it's absolutely first pickable. We've seen the strength and the weakness of Cho'Gath in action. Of course, strength in every game is going to be this early game clear. That's why Maxlore is able to get around the jungle faster. The change to his E and just the sustain that comes from the Hunter's Talisman plus his passive just means that Maxlore basically doesn't get hurt through the jungle at all.
A little bit of a bait and switch there from IgNar. He was waddling forward, implying some threat onto Kobbe, but instead turned the attention to Mikyx, got a good amount of damage down. At the same time, Alphari goes in with the wallop crunch boulder toss combo and gets a good trade onto Wunder. So a lot of early trading across the lanes, but no huge advantage yet.
This is an early roam coming out from Misfits towards the top lane. They want to try and get Alphari ahead. Look, PowerOfEvil has even come. Maxlore was spotted on a ward. They haven't spotted PoE yet. He's stuck all the way around the back of the lane to cut Wunder off before he can get away.
All right, the hook shot comes out. Flash as well. Wunder decides to sidestep the seismic shove, and Wunder's able to escape. It ends up costing a ghost and flash from Alphari and PowerOfEvil.
Yeah, flash for flash on the top lane is a lot of things missed from PowerOfEvil there as he tried to get in through the queue backwards, try to get the seismic shove to predict where Wunder was going to go. It's a lot of investment out by Misfits to try and get this play on the top side, but I do like what they're attempting here. Trying to get the ball rolling, get Alphari ahead. PowerOfEvil, you know he's going to have push power in the middle lane against his Orianna anyway, so utilize some of the time outside of the laning phase, use the passive that allows him to wall surf his way up quickly towards the top lane, but no real effect until Maxlore goes back to that lane. If that play happens again while the flash isn't there from Wunder, then you can call it a big success.
Big success indeed. No flash available. Maxlore needs to repeat the gank. Instead, he's going to go down bottom. Mikyx gets head-butted away. Stand behind me, not available. Gets silenced as well. Easy first blood for Misfits.
And this is one of the strengths of Cho'Gath. If you have crowd control in the lane, it is easy to get him in there. The silence comes through. No way for Mikyx to get out. So he didn't even use his summoners. For a while, he couldn't, but he wasn't going to after the silence wore off anyway. Early first kill in the game for Hansama. And we've seen what Hansama can do when he's put ahead in the lane, but last game, he died 4 times very quickly.
After getting first blood. That was how it worked, right? they got it the first time. But now all of a sudden, by the way, it's Maxlore. He's on the Cho'Gath, he gets a flash up top, comes down bottom, and just great setup from IgNar.
From here, Maxlore's in range for the Rupture, in range for the Silence, and easy play on the bottom side. But look at this, Turnabout's fair play up on the top side as Trashy and Sencux are here. This is the reverse of what just happened. No flash for Alphari.
Alphari's about
Nearly
to Gnar out, though. A lot of damage comes out. He hops over the wall, and Wunder very easily secures that.
Alphari throws his hands up. He knows he was one boomerang or auto attack away at the end of that from being Gnar, but they caught him just in enough time. And we talked about how the play on top side, if it's Maxlore that repeats, would be a success. But it's Trashy using Misfits' aggressive play against them to capitalize and put Wunder ahead in the top lane.
And the timing was just so massive. Wunder gets a CS advantage, denies what's nearly
Kobbe.
2 waves. Kobbe's got flash and heal available to him, flashes away from the Rupture, but that's a successful gank. IgNar trades his flash for Kobbe's flash. And the early moves here from both junglers are paying off. They've both been successful in their respective ganks.
And this is where a lot of people look at a tank meta and say, okay, tank junglers can't do too much, but when you've got lanes that can facilitate this crowd control that comes from the jungle, that's where you can have the impact. Look, Wunder from that first blood now has a sheen that's going to increase his burst potential when he comes down from that hook shot. That's what he's been maxing, so you get a big spike of damage down onto the Gnar. If they get that with Trashy in the lane again, likely to be another kill because Alphari's flash is still way away.
Yeah, and look at that. Different elemental Drake, much earlier priority. The fact that Kobbe and Mikyx were forced away from the lane means that it's easily secured by Misfits. Trashy, no prison yet. Good shockwave catches out PowerOfEvil. He's got no flash available to him. Permafrost comes down as Sencux and Trashy combo for an easy kill.
Once again, the effect of the flashes being used earlier shown. Maxlore wasn't quite in range, and despite Misfits going all aggressive towards that Infernal Drake, Splyce pick up the kill, but now they want to go in bottom lane again.
All right, the Pulverize comes down into Mikyx. Kobbe steps forward. Hansama's got an army of minions in front of him, so Kobbe and Mikyx do not want this fight. Hansama gets 1, 2, 3, 4 Ren stacks lined up into Kobbe and pops the E. IgNar's got an Ignite available, fancies the tower dive. Kobbe's going low.
She's on the way.
Stun. That's another for Hansama. Tower aggro's on the cannon minion. Hansama runs for his life. Glacial Prison comes down. There's IgNar, uses the Fate's Call to buy some time. Hansama stayed alive. He's turned this around. There's not enough damage. Hansama and IgNar win the 2v3.
Yeah, they managed to get the kill early on, deny the reinforcements from Trashy coming through, having a big impact in that. Yes, the ultimate landed, but IgNar waited on the Fate's Call to just defer any more push from Trashy and Mikyx. And from there's no damage coming through from a Sejuani and a Braum, despite the fact that Hansama is like 200 health. He will just hop away and has his heal available. So easy play in the 2 versus 3. Nice recognition here, though. Look, the vision control of Misfits actually makes Splyce question whether Cho'Gath is here again. And that's why Splyce initially back off. When Cho never shows up, they step forward again. And that's where Kobbe starts taking more damage. Enough that IgNar knows he can go aggressive under the tower. He's not level 6, doesn't even need his ultimate to make a play like this. It's headbutt into Ignite, into Pulverize as Hansama gets the kill. And here, it's a nice ult by Trashy to try and get Hansama down, but IgNar, great defensive play, denies any further engage, and there's no more damage left.
You have to wonder, where was this Alistar in previous games? Just didn't show up. I mean, this is a completely different AD carry laning phase from what we saw like a game ago, Stress. Here's some of the stats at the end of game number 2, 100% kill participation for Kobbe on that Tristana. But him and Mikyx, they were dumpstering with Tristana in lane, and now they're forced to lane swap.
Super dominant. Tristana, Braum just jumping forward all of the time. We talked about how Kobbe and Mikyx have this aggressive playstyle. This Alistar is very good at facilitating what the rest of Misfits have, and that's one of the drawbacks of a Braum. Is Braum against Alistar can't actually stop that engage until he's level 6. We saw Maxlore use full advantage of that to come down on the first blood. Then they use it in lane once again as IgNar is able to go aggressive. And that gives the tower first blood over to Misfits because Splyce had to swap out of the lane. Yeah, that means Splyce have got a numbers advantage in the top lane. Alphari and IgNar going to get some support from Maxlore and PowerOfEvil. The Weaver's Wall is available if PoE needs to use it. Trashy going to take this blast cone if he can get the auto, and he does. Tries to deny the blast cone as IgNar knocks him up. But look, now the focus turns to Rift Herald. Splyce looking for this. We've seen this in a couple of games from them, where they just concede on the bottom half of the map and pick up the Rift Herald in response. All right, can Splyce use it to take out a tower? That's going to be the question. Wunder's farmed himself a nearly 20 CS advantage, and Hansama's farmed himself a nearly 30 CS advantage. But we need to translate that into actual gold lead. If observers can toggle from items to gold, it is 1,800 gold in favor of Hansama currently. That is an astonishing lead. That's more than the lead Misfits even have in this game. Nearly the entirety of it. It's just fantastic. But when you've got a 2-0 Kalista that's plus 25 CS and got solo tower first blood, well, that's how you have a pretty fed Hansama. Our biggest narrative coming into this week was Misfits. Do they only have one carry? Is it only PowerOfEvil? Is he the only guy that'll win a game for Misfits? And what a week to ask that question, because Hansama has in multiple games, with this Kalista specifically, shown that when given a lead, he can control a game quite effectively. It's not been perfect. Last game, I think, is an example of how he hasn't had the best games at all time, but I think this is the growth we wanted to see from Hansama. And the growth we wanted to see from Misfits as a team. Admittedly, we've seen growth from both squads. You know, the Splyce early game, we weren't expecting a huge amount from them. And games 1 and 2 this series, they definitely played clean, albeit slow at times. This time around, though, now they've got to once again play from behind. Now, this is a position Splyce have been in all series long. They've consistently fallen behind. And Misfits, they've matched the lane swap, sent their duo lane top. And with no tower on the bottom lane, Wunder, despite the lead he's accrued, he's now going to be joining up with Trashy and Sencux in the mid lane. Remember, Hextech Ultimatum, Glacial Prison, Shockwave, more than enough to take down, well, anybody at this stage of the game. And what's different between the first game and this game for Wunder is his team can play a little more defensively. This Maokai isn't quite, or there's no Maokai in this game, so it's not quite as effective as we saw Maxlore be of just casting the ultimate and rooting 4 people down. But you can see just Misfits committing to all of this early game sustain, just making sure they can just take the lane matchups against Splyce for now. Yeah, drag that one out. I actually don't think I've ever seen 5 refillable potions before. If you look at the inventory in the bottom of the screen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them. I will carry on with that in a moment or two. Hextech Ultimatum comes down. Alphari is locked inside. Precision Protocol comes down. Phage and Sheen doing wonders for Wunder. Very good flash comes out. Now Trashy's all of a sudden looking for Maxlore. Feral Scream into the Rupture is sidestep. Very good seismic shove. A lot of damage on a Trashy. He's forced to run for his life. Wunder gets a passive shield onto PowerOfEvil and Sencux. Shockwave still available to him.
If a PowerOfEvil steps forward, that's another kill, but Splyce get 2 and get out.
All from a 1v1 started by Wunder, knowing he had the damage to trade onto Alphari. Didn't even have Trinity Force, but it was fine because he could get onto the Mini-Gnar, put the damage down from the burst, and then in came Trashy and Sencux in order to supplement the rest of the fight. Look, Alphari pushed up in lane. This is what Alphari wasn't doing in game 1. He wasn't playing aggressively, and Wunder on this Camille easily able to control in the long lane, and Maxlore didn't have the time to get here. Nice flash out after the hook shot. Misfits at this point think they can maybe take the fight here. They've got Cho'Gath. They surely think they have the damage, but the problem is Trashy and Sencux are here. They get a great stun on PowerOfEvil as Wunder is able to get another hook shot and easily clean up the end of the fight.
Yeah, Splyce 2 for 0. They even out the gold. They take the kill lead 4-2 as we approach 15 minutes into the game. And a Mountain Drake has spawned, but with no tower in the bottom lane for Splyce to fall back to. Going to be a little more difficult to hold on to that area of the map. Trashy, I believe, is about to run out of time on that Rift Herald. Feels about right, as they've summoned it down middle and just instantly going to get gobbled up here.
Now,
Misfit squads.
Okay, so it doesn't count as one of the... Oh, okay, they didn't even feast it. I was going to say, it doesn't count as an epic monster, but it's just giving Cho'Gath another feast stack at that point, but Rend was the thing that took it.
Managed to kill that one out, and Splyce, as we mentioned, no tower, no real ability to set up for the dragon, so that's why Misfits are their first, and Splyce are still looking for their first tower here. And
that's why they didn't use the feast, is because they wanted it available to take the dragon, even though it does have that reduced cooldown when you use it on a minion, as Maxlore will have it available to take this. Remember, you infinitely stack off dragons, so that's why it's better to give it to the feast rather than the Rend.
And that just allows Maxlore's Cho'Gath to get beefier. Already at nearly 2,000 hit points, maxing that E, then W. Increase the length on that Feral Scream. I hate silence as an ability.
It's so awful to play against.
It's so frustrating to play against. You just feel like your champion is not working, because, well, he's not.
He's not, yeah, that's... I'm glad it's working as intended at that point then.
Well,
silence.
Doesn't make it any less annoying.
No, neither is a basically lane-wide AoE % max health slow on his E when you get enough stacks. That's kind of frustrating to play against too, and it's one of the reasons why Maxlore is going to have a lot of presence in the later fights. Pair that with the infinite scaling from Feast, that ridiculous amount of % damage.
Well, you talk about that as Maxlore continues to scale. How else do the rest of Misfits win? What are the win conditions with this team composition? You know that Gnar can split push, but how else?
It's a lot focused on the team fights because they haven't got the likes of a Vladimir or an Orianna to win the late game team fights past the point of Splyce being able to contend. This Kog'Maw and Orianna will come online and Misfits won't have that opportunity. So between now and roughly 30 minutes, we're going to have to see Misfits win back-to-back fights, and they haven't really set themselves up to do that. They haven't put many opportunities in the face of Splyce in order to catch them out. And I actually think that Splyce are going to be happy with this game of grinding down and trading objectives because it's powering up their late game carries just well enough.
Yeah, you've got Camille, Sejuani, Orianna, all the scaling in the world, and Splyce in the lead. I mean, I made a joke during Picks and Bans and said that Splyce will be given at least 23 minutes to scale up. Mikyx interrupts the Diglett dig. The PowerOfEvil's trying to throw down. Glacial Prison comes out. He's instantly killed. Don't have any clue what PoE thought he was going to do with no flash there.
And no wall. Like, he just used it. He chose to cast the wall, didn't actually ride it through. That's a very weird death to give away from PowerOfEvil, because Misfits weren't prepared for that fight. Nobody else was really in range. There was no team fighting tools available, and you were going to fight against Splyce, who had all of their ultimates. Very strange.
And all kudos to Trashy again for finding the ultimate. Now, admittedly, it's a pretty wide skill shot, that frozen bowler on the Glacial Prison, but managed to, once again, lock down PowerOfEvil, pick up a 5th kill of the game. I mean, Splyce have quietly snuck a 2,000 gold lead and a tower lead.
And consider that that was from their AD carry being down 1,800 gold earlier. Now it's 1,500, still a significant lead, but the leads they've got elsewhere, through the middle lane, through some of their objectives, the top lane, is actually supplementing the disparity between Kobbe and Hansama very well. And we need to see Misfits put more through Hansama, get Hansama some more kills. Okay, I guess we're going to see the interrupt.
I'm trying to see what happens here. So Mikyx cancels
just,
the wall.
oh, it's the Unbreakable, yeah, so it cancels it. And then PowerOfEvil's like, okay, we were going to go on this fight, so I'm just going to run in again. And Trashy sees him coming. Okay, so PowerOfEvil was still committing to the play, and not everybody else was.
So not the same speed. Nobody else can surf on walls like you can, dude. It can take a lot longer to engage. And Trashy cleared some good distance with that Arctic Assault into the prison. By the way, Sencux, definitely not sucking on Orianna.
No.
2-0-2, I felt maybe we didn't really highlight his Syndra game as much as we could have in the last game. And this time round, he's silencing any critics. It's a very strong Orianna in the laning phase. Let's see what happens here. Glacial Prism this time misses, because of course I was
now they're trapped in.
A little while ago, the Weaver's Wall's locked down. No teleports used yet, guys. Glacial Fissure comes down. Finally, Alphari starts to channel a TP. Wunder can do the same. Will complete it in the middle of the rift. Hextech Ultimatum's available, and the fight breaks out. Wunder is on a killing spree. He takes down Alphari. Hook shots over the wall for 2. The Shockwave misses. Sencux, that was terrible. Doesn't matter, though, because Wunder and Kobbe are running amok. And Splyce get 4.
We talked about Misfits needing to fight, but unfortunately, the fights they've picked are just very Splyce favored. Wunder was able to hold on to his TP for long enough for the fact that Alphari, despite being Mega Gnar, TP's in, gets a multi-person Gnar, but it isn't enough. Splyce missed a whole bunch in that fight and still were able to take it convincingly. We'll see exactly what they did miss here, because you mentioned Sencux's Shockwave to begin this out. So IgNar's face checking into Mikyx, and Splyce kind of knows. So Trashy, the flash out from the bowler, and then they just buy enough time. Look, Wunder hasn't TP'd yet, neither has Alphari. And Misfits move back in the fight, they come forward, and Splyce does reset. Once again, Kobbe is going to have massive team fight damage here, and nobody is focusing him out. Stun down onto Alphari, and the rest of the fight is just a case of walking through this. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Sencux just lost track of the ball.
Yep, snap back.
That was a little bit too mean in the team fight. It didn't need to hit. It just would have made it even more powerful. Because Sencux has had a fantastic Orianna game. 2-0-6. Splyce are, what, 5,000 gold up at 21 minutes. And as long as they don't lose a team fight in Baron, they're now in control of the game and the series.
And what was a great draft in game 1 and 2 even from Misfits, and disciplined play, not giving up a lot of the advantages in the lanes, in the side lanes especially. Now Misfits have gone a little bit ill-disciplined. They're gonna just all in on Baron. Okay, that is risky. They know, of course, they have Feast sometime. Actually, it's not even available.
All right, no Feast.
They got Rend, but now you want to take a fight against Splyce. They know Wunder's no teleport.
Kobbe and Mikyx are off on the sidelines. Kobbe's been kicked out. That's a good Gnar from Alphari, and Sencux is the target. Where's the Shockwave? Sencux stays alive. As it stands, PowerOfEvil's down. Maxlore follows after. Sencux is not going to be able to save Trashy's life. A very good headbutt from IgNar buys some time. But the distance from Wunder is just too great. 4 members of Misfits die. They are the ones that make the risky Baron call. And it ends up coming back to hurt them. Kobbe gets his first kill.
Riggedy Risty at that point was what you were probably going after.
Trying to.
Splyce can just take these fights so simply. The big criticism of Misfits that the analysts talked about at the beginning of the day was their tendency to just make plays, take the wrong fights, go for Baron, and guess what this was? Misfits trying to all in on the Baron, thinking Wunder was further away than he actually was, not respecting the damage that Splyce have at this point. This Kog'Maw still has good damage in team fights, and Misfits are on different pages. And Splyce easily take another fight. This game is going quickly out of the grasp of Misfits. It hasn't been in their control for at least 10 minutes.
I'm at an absolute loss for words this series. We've seen some of the strangest decisions and not decisions, some of the strangest turns in gameplay, right? A completely even game at 20 minutes. In game 1, gets Baron and then magically ends 5 minutes later. Game 2, we have that crazy backdoor finish. And now game 3, Splyce. They somehow just smash Misfits at every opportunity once we leave the laning phase.
And it's because the composition for Misfits is not as forgiving. with the Maokai, with the Orianna. There were so many opportunities to just take bad fights because you're great at fighting. So if you're fighting, you're probably winning. Right. This time around, it's more complex. They need early game advantages. They need to be able to keep Hans Sama alive, get PowerOfEvil's damage down, and they're up against the scaling composition, which is good at fighting, that does have forgiving measures in it. And unfortunately, Misfits have misplayed enough fights that Splyce are in total control. Yeah, they really, really are. Despite Kobbe falling so far behind early, the rest of the team is more than made up for it. Wunder and Sencux just enabled by Trashy. Keeps that 5k gold lead. I've not talked about items too much. Hurricane, Blade of the Rune King for Ansama. Rage Blade and Blade of the Rune King just completed for Kobbe, so fully online. And the Frozen Mallets now for Alphari. So nothing really surprising item-wise, but Splyce at 25 minutes, they've got 2 item spikes pretty much across the board for their main carries. And Misfits now need to find Splyce out of position or burst them down with the CC. Yeah, the Rage Blade's the important one. For a tank buster as well, like a Kog'Maw that already gets good damage. You hit W, you get the attack speed, you get the on-hit augment from Rage Blade as well, and Kobbe will just shred all the way through Maxlore and Alphari if he is safe. That's always the caveat to it. Well, how are they going to get through Braum, Sejuani, and Orianna? I mean, yes, Gnar maybe with the flank. He's got that once or twice, but Kobbe has reacted in time. If IgNar maybe with the ultimate from Kalista throws him in, but Kobbe, look, his summoners are available. He's easily able to reposition in fights and just got the Blade of the Rune King active as well. Kobbe has actually played team fights this series very well on the Tristana, on the Kog'Maw so far. And this is the point in the game where you start thinking, okay, right, who is player of the series? How do you award it? And, you know, Trashy's had a very good game on all 3 games, in my opinion, in his jungle picks. Yeah. But I think Kobbe is probably the man that's got my leading votes. He's great game in Tristana. Nothing to do with the fact the stats team just I was going to say, did the stats team just ask you? I was like, oh, this is a great talking point. Have you thought about it? But no, but I do, you know, you get to game 2, you get to game 3, and you start thinking, right, who deserves player of the series, and how do you submit a vote? I think it is difficult. I think Kobbe, when you look at who has closed games and been the person responsible for that, but as you said, when you've got Frontline playing for you, how responsible are they for defending a fragile carry? You go to game 2, if Trashy hadn't locked up PowerOfEvil's Vlad with the prison, maybe Kobbe dies, right? So does Trashy deserve it or not? Those are the questions that I am wrought with frustration with right now. The Glacial Fissure comes down from Mikyx, and very easy fight here for Splyce. Very good Gnar from Alphari. It gets the wallop and the crunch. Shockwave pulls back too. Splyce not done yet. Everybody gets a kill. Wunder's able to walk out of everything. No damage lands. Sencux flashes over the wall. It's a clean ace for Splyce. No damage exists from the Misfits to clean up a fight, and Splyce all members strong. 5-0. Towers are going to go down. They have good damage to take this Baron, and what has been an incredibly close series up until game 3 is now everything in Splyce's court. They're going to be able to take this down very quickly and look to end the game within the next 3 minutes. I mean, there's no ways they can throw this game. Touch wood. Let's see whether or not. I mean, 10k gold. That was just an exquisite team fight. And IgNar and Misfits are just too far behind. They're too disjointed. So Splyce going in on the team fight after Misfits closed the distance. Here you can see my vote for player of the series. Safely at the back there, Kobbe being able to output all of this damage down. It's a team effort from Splyce, though. As much as we're singing the praises of Kobbe, Wunder's had a fantastic game. He is 8-0-6 on this Camille. He has been such an instrumental part. Like Sencux 6-0-11. It actually is more difficult than just Trashy or Kobbe. So now that I'm looking this, I'm like, wow, I actually... The thing is, it has to be player of the series, right? Not player of the game. So Kobbe and Mikyx now this is a good engage. Misfits may be able to get some kills here. Kobbe is silenced, no flash available, gets caught by the Master as well. Here comes Wunder. Whether or not you are voting for Kobbe, let's see whether or not he's the main carry. Alphari gets chunked down. Sencux gets himself yet another. This is just an easy stomp for Splyce. Shockwave to finish it in style. Wow. As Wunder gets yet another. Initially,
I had thought of Kobbe, but I actually changed my vote to Trashy. 3, 1, and 19. 22 of the team's 24 kills. I think he's had early game impact.
Yeah.
I think he's had team fight impact. Like, this is just a beautiful ending to what was the deciding game.
And I think Wunder and Sencux will be upset at that as well, because this game for them. But look, they just want to fight without their late game AD carry because of how strong the Camille, the Orianna, the crowd control that Splyce were bringing. And this seems to be a little bit more of this magical formula for them. They were trying to play long range comps a little earlier with the Sejuani, the Syndra, a little bit different of a focus. But look, Misfits, they're the ones that start disengage. Misfits couldn't get more than Kobbe before Wunder arrives, deletes Hansama so hard that I can't even get my words out, and Splyce just move through the rest of the team fight with ease. There is nothing stopping them here, despite the number of tanks that Misfits drafted. Just the damage is way too much.
It really is, and so much credit to Splyce. After that game 1, where they legitimately threw the game, Splyce put themselves into a scenario where they got team fought on and then lost. And for Splyce to bounce back, win the backdoor in game 2, and now crush Misfits in game 3. Weaver's Wall, actually, there's fantastic from PowerOfEvil. PowerOfEvil takes the satchel to safety, leaves Hansama for dead. Splyce get themselves 3 more kills. 27 kills in 29 minutes.
This is ugly now.
I mean, like, there is actually Misfits family members in the audience here watching this game, Splyce. End it, end it.
This is already done. It's that scene from Simpsons with the Hamburglar. He's already dead at this point. Splyce pushing in for a very convincing game 3 win.
Well, Splyce is absolutely destroying Misfits, taking down both of the Nexus turrets, and in one of the most dominant game 3s, Splyce take down Misfits to close out the cross-group play. And crucially, Splyce are now tied with H2K, UOL, and G2 at 6 series wins and 3 losses.
Of course, H2K and UOL in the same group as them makes Group B very interesting, and considering results like Unicorns losing to Roccat, Splyce may have just started a streak to jump above the Unicorns of life. Splyce are on a good spree of games like this. Maybe the Group B standings aren't settled anytime soon. Especially
with Vitality on the run. Sorry, correction. Top of the table, yes, in Group B. And on the other side, with Roccat now being 1 series away from Misfits and taking down UOL like you just mentioned, Roccat are now touching distance of a playoff spot of Misfits. Today's a strange series.
It has been.
The way the game's played out, the decision-making, and I'm going to do a quick, personal rant for a moment. Every time Splyce go on stage, I actually walk up to their manager and ask their manager to get Wunder and Kobbe to get all the kills for me. I have both of them in my fantasy team. Unfortunately, my fantasy league does not count game 3. It only counts It only counts games 1 and 2.
Wunder was 11-0 and 11. Oh, that's the most disappointing thing. I'm actually just mad because they keep trolling us in Champion Select. They keep hovering Kane, and Mickey just laughs at us when we get excited.
It is good, but you saw the players on stage. They're just walking back to the pods and pedestals, and Splyce backdoor in game 2, absolute crush in game 3, and I can see the Misfits players, having a bit of a huddle now. The mindset and what this game does to you, knowing the impact on the standings, knowing the implications for playoffs, it is huge.
And it was somewhat of a risky draft coming out from Misfits, putting all of their eggs in the early game basket up against an Orianna Kog'Maw. Remember, those are the 2 picks drafted in this game, so I can understand why Misfits go, okay, they've got late game scaling, we can actually beat them early and then transition that into a win, but unfortunately, too many team fights, too many skirmishes that didn't go in their favor, ill-advised skirmishes, means Misfits don't come out the victors on the series.
They do not, and of course, the voting panel is in for the player of the series. It ended up going to Trashy, the man that had all the engages on that Sejuani, the early game impact. This is our dramatic Zoom package for player of the series this week. Also, Trashy is headed up to the analyst desk now, where he will join Dracus and the boys for a post-game lobby, talk a little bit about the series, talk about our expectations, and of course, how now the last week of cross-group play played out, because, Stress.
Yeah.
If I look at my numbers,
writing.
Group A got 31 wins, game-wise. Okay. Group B got 31 wins, but Group B is the victor because they won 13 of the 25 series.
Wow. Incredible, incredible.
Maths is hard sometimes.
Tiebreaker on series there. We should go another level, see who 2-0'd very often. But I like the parity in groups because there's always the discussion which group is stronger.
The parity in groups. Of the 12 Group A wins, 5 of them were Fnatic. And the other 4 teams were only able to combine 7 series wins together. Math is so hard.
It's so difficult.
It's a 4-day week. It's Sunday. I'm not here.
It's always up and down because there's arguments for both things, right? It's like Rocket beat the Unicorns, but then Fnatic smashed the entire opposite group. So then you have that argument. It's always fun with a group structure like this when people start comparing because you won't know until playoffs when you see if it's 3 Group A teams, 3 Group B teams, or whether everything is an even spread before you really see who is the top group. What
I'm excited about as well is this is the discussion that we'll carry on as well with Trashy. I'm looking forward to hearing a player's perspective in terms of like the parity within the groups. Of course, we've mentioned this a lot this series, how now HTK, UOL, G2, and Splyce are all tied for series. And we need to see who's going to advance to playoffs. But we end cross-group play. It's week 7. It's now ended. 7-14 rewrote the meta quite a lot. And that ironically ended up hurting Unicorns, where I thought it would favor them. Because it kind of put them on an even keel, right?
And the weird thing was, they went to a meta that everybody else had just left, and everybody else went to the meta the Unicorns were just playing with, fight all the time in mid lane, so that's why you thought it would favor them. Very, very weird turn of events this week.
Very weird indeed, and while they're getting set up on the analyst desk, it is time to take a look at some of the highlights from our last 4 days of games here in Berlin. So here are your big plays of the week, of course, brought to you by Acer.
Now the first one we want to look at is, after being ranked as the 7th best mid laner in Europe by Caps, Exile had something to prove against Fnatic's mid laner. Let's take a look.
Will the Unicorns of Love give up first blood? Yes, they will! A second for Reckless! Death Sentence on the back end won't find a target. Caps is now running for his life. Exile's looking to trade with the rake, the flash, the dash, the smash! Exile gets it!
The Exile is able to get his solo kill outplay onto Caps.
Solo laners cannot afford to go mid to late. Exile and Caps trading very heavily. I don't know if Caps fully was aware of that.
He can win this, he can win this.
Cleanse comes out, Twin Fangs available, Exile and Caps, trading.
I knew it! He was out of mana, he was out of mana! And Exile was just waiting for the Q reset.
So excited watching that because going into the game, one of our big narratives was about how Exile had been struggling and how he needed to find his form. And then he literally makes all of us shut up on the caster desk with like individual 1v1 outplays. It was great to see.
Brings out the talent. This is why tier lists are bad, is if you're on that stage and you're playing and you go, this guy is trash.
It is. See, lucky number 7. That's how we made it work. Anyways, the Terror of the Void also took a bite out of EU LCS this week. Splyce's Wunder found himself in a nice meal, or he found a nice meal. He caught the head of his position out against the Ninjas in Pajamas.
Splyce are looking to scale into the late game with a Baron. They will disengage from it for the time being. Prophet pushed off towards the side by Sencux. Here comes the engagement. Wunder, EQ! Oh, goodbye, my son! Nothing you can do against Wunder when he wants to numb you down.
The head just got ripped right off EQ there. That was impressive. You managed to read a Q as a D. Can you read upside down?
Apparently that's what I did. Apparently that's what I did.
I was like, wow, that's impressive.
The teleprompter said HQ. I read head. I don't know. Anyways, look, earlier today we saw a thrilling finish in game number 2 between Misfits Gaming and Splyce. Misfits tried their best to stop the backdoor, but the clock was ticking very, very fast.
Misfits are going to try and end it. Tristana and Syndra could kill Alphari quite easy. They're going to try and race this down.
Kobbe and Sencux take down the Nexus turret. Alphari's left to defend, but he's got no Cataclysm.
Can they get there?
The target. Buster shot comes out. Kobbe's caught up. Sencux gets the stun.
They got to get Sencux.
Needs a few extra ones.
They got it.
Down and going to game 3.
Did it. Oh, Sencux. One more.
Yes! Just a glimpse of the craziness that happened here on our special Sunday.
It was so fun. Like, game 1 ended like that. Game 2 had, like, really everything. And I'm very impressed with Splyce in game 3. Their performance, their mid-game, it was beautiful. I want to see how they handle their own group next week. Anyway, that does it from us here.